Welcome to another speaker's tip. Today I want to talk about the effective use of gestures in your speaking. And this is actually quite an extensive subject, and it's something hard to put into a short video. But as you can see, I'm already using gestures as I talk to you. And gestures are additional communication that you're adding to your words. And for me, speaking is really about oratory excellence. It's not about jumping around on stage or fantastic stage movement, but gestures should complement what you're saying. And quite honestly, I'm not thinking about my gestures. I'm just using gestures as I would normally use them. They should be natural. They shouldn't look out of place. Now, with that, your timing has a lot to do with them. Your gestures should move at the same speed that your words do. Now, just as an example, I just did those gestures. And if I did, your gestures should move at the same speed your words do. You know that that's it's distracting at that point. At the same token, if the timing of the gesture is not in sync with the words, so I came up and I said, I have some wonderful things to tell you today. Now that makes sense. But if I came out and said, I have some wonderful things to tell you today, that, of course, doesn't make sense. A gesture can be used to open for your dialogue, because if I use that same gesture and went, I have some wonderful things to tell you today, by that gesture, you're going, he's going to say something, something's going to happen at that point. And so they should be at the same speed that you're speaking, and they should be in time with your speaking. Probably one of the biggest things I think with it is that as you develop as a speaker, your gestures just become second nature to you. You have no attention on them whatsoever. And one of the things I would say is if you have attention on your gestures, you need to work more on knowing your speech. And I talk about there's an unthinkingness to gestures. It's like you're out of your head and you're looking at the audience, because when you talk, you want your attention to be on the audience, not on, I'm supposed to move my hand 3 times to the right the next time. So the important thing with this is that it flows with your speech and they don't distract from your speech, but they complement. Now, the other side of this is unneeded and unknowing gestures. And we've seen this where people have something that they're doing on an ongoing basis, and they don't realize that they're doing it, but it's something that they have a tendency to do. And it is completely unthinking, it's out of their head. But when they get on stage, they have this little thing that they do while they're thinking, and they're trying to talk about stuff. And we've seen this, there's a number of things. Putting your hands in front, the fig leaf in front of the body. Putting your hands out here. There's all sorts of different ways that people will have gestures. I had one early in my speaking that was closed fist with the rocking arm, and I didn't even know I was doing it. And I would do these speeches, and I'd be up there talking, and my attention was on the audience, and my arms rocking. And in my Toastmasters club, I kept getting coached on the fact that it was a distracting, and I needed to handle that. And what I did, I think 2 or 3 speeches in a row where I kept my arm at my side and didn't move it. And it was like that arm had a mind of its own. It kept trying to come up and rock the whole time, but I had to hold it down. But I became conscious of that. So let's look at a couple of videos of a couple of people from the world champion competitions. And these, I think, are very effective use of gestures. I'm going to show you 2 one-minute clips. Look at how their gestures flow with their words, and they describe their word and add additional meaning to it. The other thing I want you to watch is look at where they don't use gestures. If they're not saying something or making a point with their hands, they're not using their hands. They're not flapping around at all. So the first person I'm going to have you look at is Robert McKenzie, who was the 2nd place winner in 2010. And he's got a great opening with just some great gestures. And so my next tip's going to be on stage movement, but he's got great stage movement. Thank you, Michael.
Mr. Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you my alter ego, Bob. Full name, Bobby Backwards. Bob for short, because Bob backwards is, well, you see, when I want to go forward, my alter ego wants to go backwards. When I say yes, Bob says no. And Bob always gets his way. I mean...
Okay, so that was one example. I think you could see how, even when he started Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, the gestures were right in sync with Bob. Even when he said Bob spelled backwards and you saw what he did with his hands but it was interesting, his attention was on the audience. Okay, the next person we're going to take a look at is Jim Key, who's the 2003 world champion, in his winning speech. And we're just going to look at the first minute of his speech. Watch his gestures. Watch how when he comes out and people are applauding, he doesn't use any gestures. He just stands there with his arms at the side, very natural.
The movie theater was quiet. The aroma of overpriced popcorn permeated the air. You settled in for the perfect family outing, and then it happened. The film that you were watching took a sudden emotional turn. You try to resist it, but you can't help it. And before you know it, your eyes begin to sweat.
Okay, so there we watched Jim, and you could see how he talked about the movie and the aroma. The aroma came up as he sat down, and the gestures followed with the motions that he was, or with the thoughts, the storyline. The motions of his gestures followed the thought and the storyline is really what I'm trying to say. So the last thing I want to leave you with is, and this is something that all of us have had to do, and it's something that when I work with Darren LaCroix and Ed Tate, Mark Brown at Stage Time University, they talk about this all the time, and that is video yourself. I can't say this enough. If you want to get good gestures, video yourself and watch your gestures. And one of the things that Ed talks a lot about is the fact that speed the video up. And you'll see your repeated gestures because they'll be going by very fast, and you can count how many times you do the same exact gesture. So that's one of the best tips I can give you as far as wanting to really perfect your gestures and see what they're doing. You have to become conscious of them. And then as they become more unconscious of them because they become more and more natural. So with that, it's up to you. I'll see you next week.